in Numbers. In the time of the Israelites, they've come out of bondage. They've come out of Egypt. They've marched on. The Lord's leading them. They've complained. They've whined. They've gone through a lot of stuff. But the Lord's with them. God is with them. They get to the promised land, the land of Canaan. And they get there and they send in. Moses says, send in 12 spies. So they send in the 12 spies. We all, probably just about everybody here, knows the story. They send in the 12 spies. They come back and they're giving report to the whole assembly. And they gave Moses this account. Starting in verse 27, we went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there of great sizes. We saw the Nephilim. They're the descendants of Anak, come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. The people, the other spies, the 10 others, they're afraid. They're scared. If you drop down in chapter 14, verse 5, then Moses and Aaron fell down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered there, and Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israelite assembly, the land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, He will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will swallow them up. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. But what happened? What happened? They didn't do what the Lord wanted. The Israelites failed. They were scared. They forgot God. And they ended up wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. They ended up wandering to the point that the only ones who saw the land of Canaan, of those original men, of those 12 spies, was Joshua and Caleb. Who are we? And that's the question this morning I want to ask, and I'm putting forward a challenge to you. Who are we? The last two Sundays, many Sundays now, but the last two in particular, I have heard sermons in front of the congregation about where do you stand, and about the forces that are pulling on us. The forces, whether it be Satan or whether it be Christ, the forces that are pulling on us. And that many people are sitting on the outer edge. They're on the outer rim. And we need to come in to the center. We all need to be united and come together. And then we heard sermons about love. I mean, I preached a sermon the last time I sat up here about love. And what a great sermon to preach. Because Jesus Christ has represented nothing but love. God is love. Love is mentioned more than anything in the Bible. And how great that is. How wonderful that is. And we have to love people. And we have to love, above all else, God and Christ. And in part of doing that, we have to be willing to fight for what is right. We have to be willing to stand up for the Lord. And that's what this sermon's about. Soldiers of Christ, arise. We just sang that song. Onward, Christian soldiers. We just sang that song. We sang a number of songs surrounding that this morning. My question to you this morning, if you're a Christian here this morning, are you a soldier for Christ? Are you willing to stand up and to do what is right? Or are you here just to pacify yourself in some way that in the end means nothing? What are you here to do? Are you ready to work? There are a lot of people here working, folks. There are a lot of people getting up and going and doing. We all need to be doing it. Everybody here needs to be doing it. Are you a Joshua? Are you a Caleb? Or are you afraid? That's the question. Now, we're not going to talk about Joshua and Caleb anymore at this point. We're going to skip on over to Judges. If you'll turn in the book of Judges to chapter 5. I'm sorry, chapter 6. What's happening at this point in time? We got the same old folks. The Jews, the Israelites. Okay? And by this time, they've been in the land. They've been through a lot. They forgot God. And they've been up and down a roller coaster. They forget Him. They get oppressed. And then God rises up someone to pull them out of the mess. Sound familiar? Look at our world today. Look at the overall society of this world today. Look at our society that we live in here. Look at our little community. Look at our little church. Look at your own family. There's always a little bit of a roller coaster. And why does that roller coaster exist? Because we forget God. God does not forget us. And chapter 6 starts out, again the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And for 7 years He gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples invaded the country. They camped on the land and ruined the crops all the way to Gaza and did not spare a living thing for Israel. Neither sheep, nor cattle, nor donkeys. They came up with their livestock, their tents, like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count the men and their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. Midian so impoverished the Israelites, they cried out to the Lord for help. And when the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, He sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I snatched you from the power of Egypt and from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them from before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites in whose land you live. But you have not listened to me." They did evil. They did all these things. Now they're oppressed. And now they're crying again. They're complaining again. Why? Why? Why me? Sound familiar? God says, look at everything I've done for you. Look at all these things I've done for you. But you have not listened to me. But as God is good, and as God loves His people, as we start in verse 11, the angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "But sir," Gideon replied, "if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all His wonders that our father told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and put us into the hand of Midian. The Lord turned to him. You notice that? The Lord turned to him and said, Go in strength you have, and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? But Lord, Gideon asked, How can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. The Lord answered, I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites together. So then Gideon replied, If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign, and that is really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you. And the Lord said, I will wait until you return. So the Lord has come to Gideon. And this angel of the Lord is speaking to him. And he calls him a mighty warrior. I wonder if he even knew he was a warrior. I don't know. Because he goes on to say, what do you mean? He's calling me to do this? I mean, the Lord's let our people be oppressed. We've gone through all these things. What's going on? And the Lord said, if you do what I tell you, I'll lead you and these people out of this. And Gideon's like, man, I'm the weakest. I'm of the smallest family. I'm the weakest clan, the smallest clan. We're nothing. We're nothing. Doesn't God have a way of making something out of nothing? You might want to remember those parables that Jesus taught about that little mustard seed, right? Or a little bit of leaven. It only takes a little. God will make the increase, folks. Gideon sees it. Not right now, but he will. And he asks God, I want to know what I'm speaking to now. I don't want this to be a trick. I don't want this to be foolish on me, a joke on me. Let me go back and get something to set before you here. And the Lord said He'd wait. And He did. And so the angel of God said to him in verse 20, Take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on the rock, pour out the broth. And Gideon did so. That's what he brought. And Gideon did so. With the tip of the staff that which was in his hand, the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat, and the bread and the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, Ah, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face. But the Lord said to him, Peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die. And Gideon goes on to build an altar to the Lord there. He knows now, for sure, this is God who is telling him what he's going to do. And that same night, it says that, it goes on to say in verse 25, he said to him, Take the second bull from your father's herd, the one 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah's pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on top of this height, using the wood of the Asherah's pole that you cut down. Offer the second bull as a burnt offering. So he was living there with his family, who are supposed to be God's people, and they're worshiping Baal. They've got an Asherah's pole out there that they worship. And God said, the first thing you're going to do is this, Gideon. He's going to tear it down. Now this is among his family. You know? How hard is it sometimes to stand up to your family? Have you ever had to do that? I'm going to tell you what. There are times I would just melt as to have to deal with that. So Gideon did it. He did it at night. I don't guess God told him you have day or night. He did it at night. He took his servants and they went and did it. They did exactly what God told them to do. So they tore it down. They put up an altar to God. So when the morning came, it says in verse 28, the men of the town got up, and there was Baal's altar demolished with the Asherah's pole beside it cut down, and the second bull sacrificed on the newly built altar. And they asked each other, who did this? When they carefully investigated, they were told Gideon, son of Joash, did it. And then they're like, he's got to die. He's got to die. And it goes on to talk about the fact that the dad was like, look, Who is Baal that he can't protect himself? Okay? You know, Baal will take care of whoever it is if he's really a god. If he really can do all these things, and he can take care of himself, let's leave it to that. So God watched out after Gideon. And they got the point. It goes on to talk about in verse 33. Now all the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples joined forces and crossed over the Jordan and camped in the valley of Jezreel. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon. And he blew a trumpet, summoning the Abiezrites to follow him. He sent messengers through Manasseh, calling them to arms, and also into Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, so that they went up to meet them. So the Spirit of the Lord is on Gideon, and he blows his trumpet, and now everybody's coming and running. You see how the Lord works? Gideon said to God, if you will save Israel by my hand, as you have promised. He goes on, and he questions God a couple of more times. And he says, if you'll just do these signs for me, then I'll know you're really with me. How many of us are like that? How many of us are like that? You know, well, you know, I got to know now for sure. I need to test it a little further. Gideon did, but you know what? God was patient with him. God was patient with him. And He did. He gave him the signs that he needed. And then in chapter 7, it goes on to tell us that early in the morning, Gideon and all his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Moriah. The Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men for me to deliver Midian into their hands, in order that Israel may not boast against me, that her own strength has saved her. Announce to the people, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. God said, man, you got too many people. You got too many soldiers. How many times have you ever heard that? When I go to a fight, I want to be surrounded with some folks, you know? When I was a kid growing up in high school, if we were playing ball and we ever got in a situation where there might have been a scuffle, I was the little guy. I wanted a lot of folks around me, you know? Got one of them sitting here with me today. Okay? So that's what I wanted. God told Gideon, you got too many people. It amazes me that Gideon didn't go, what? What? But God tells him what to do. And the people that feared, that were trembling, they left. 22,000 of them left. 10,000 stayed. But the Lord said to Gideon, you still got too many. You still got too many. Verse 4, but the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will sift them for you there. If I say, this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So Gideon took the men down to the water. There the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues like a dog from those who kneel it on to drink. 300 men lapped with their hands to their mouths. All the rest got down on their knees to drink. 300 men lapped like dogs. That's all that's left. So the Lord said, these are the 300. These are the ones. I'm going to give the Midianites to you with 300 men. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites to their tent, but kept 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. Gideon did what the Lord wanted him to do. He answered the call. Now, sure, God's helping him along the way. The camp of Midian lay below him in the valley. During that night, the Lord said to Gideon, get up. Go down against the camp because I'm going to give it into your hands. If you're afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying. Afterward, you will be encouraged to attack the camp. So he goes down there and he does that, and he finds out that they're talking and one of them's had a dream. Okay? And just as Gideon arrived, it says in 13, the man had this dream, was telling his friend about this dream. He said, I had a dream. He said, a round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. His friend responded, "This can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hand." What kind of confidence did he have then? The Lord was looking after Gideon. He was with him. He told him he was going to be with him. And he gave him the confidence needed to lead. So, in verse 15, when Gideon heard the dream and in his interpretation he worshiped God, he returned to the camp of Israel and called out, "Get up! The Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." I mean, can you imagine? You're sitting in the camp, Gideon comes back and he says, "Get up!" And it's in the middle of the night. "Get up! The Lord's given the Midianites to you. It's done." I mean, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them with torches inside. "Watch me," he said. "Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp blow yours and shout for the Lord and for Gideon." Gideon and the 100 men with him reached the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just after they had changed the guard. They blew their trumpets. They broke their jars that were in their hands. The 3 companies blew the trumpets and smashed the jars, grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow. They shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." While each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran crying as they fled. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their own swords. God is good. And the army fled. Fled to Beth Shittah toward Zerah, and I can't pronounce all this, as far as the border of Abel Maholah near Tabith. Israelites from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh were called out, and they pursued the Midianites. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites and seize the waters of the Jordan ahead of them as far as Beth Barah." So the men of Ephraim were called out, and they took the waters of the Jordan as far as Beth Barah. They also captured 2 of the Midianite leaders, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb and Zeb at the winepress of Zeb. They pursued the Midianites and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon, who was by the Jordan. Folks, 300 men God took in among tens of thousands. He led them. He told Gideon what was going to happen. Gideon did what he was supposed to do. And those 300 men did what they were supposed to do. They were called to arms. And they did it. What a great victory for the Lord. What a great victory for these people. And it goes on. Gideon continues to pursue a couple of the kings, and he continues on, and he finally catches up to them, and he takes them, and anybody in the path of the Lord, Gideon and his army take care of it. And it says over here, now Zebah in verse 10 and Zalmunna were in Karkor with a force of about 15,000 men. All that were left of the armies of the eastern peoples, 120,000 swordsmen had fallen. How powerful is our God? How powerful when we follow Him. Know that God is working in you. God tells us what we have to do. If we go and we do it, do you not see what the Lord can do? Last example. One that everyone will love. One that all the little children love. If you'll turn to 2 Samuel. I'm sorry, 1 Samuel, I apologize. 1 Samuel chapter 17. David, man after God's own heart. David has already been anointed by God. He's going to be the king. Saul's still around at this point. David is still just a young boy. He's just a lad. And he's going back and forth. The Israelites are fighting against the Philistines, another one of the enemy nations. And they're fighting back. It's been a big war. It's been going on. And they've come to a standstill. And David is going from his dad, who they have some sheep, and he's guarding those sheep, and he's taking care of those sheep, and then he runs to the front and helps out up there, feeds his brothers, finds out what's going on, plays the harp for Saul. He does a number of things, as we see. But he's just a boy. He's just a lad. Well, if we start in chapter 17, now in verse 1, now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Sokah in Judah. They pitched camp at Ephes Dammim between Sokah and Azekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another, with the valley between them. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistines' camp. He was over 9 feet tall. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels on his legs. He wore bronze greaves, and bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and his iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to fight me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." And the Philistines said, "This day I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Does that remind you of anything else? They were terrified. Think about the 10 spies. They were terrified. Why are they terrified? Why are they scared? God is their God, yet they are afraid. Now David, we see as we go on, was the son of an Ephraite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. Jesse had 8 sons, and in Saul's time he was old and well advanced in years. Now Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to the war. The firstborn was Eliab, the second Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 oldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tend to his father's sheep at Bethlehem. For 40 days, folks, it says, the Philistine came forward every morning and every evening and took his stand. Goliath, for 40 days, every morning and every evening came out and taunted the Israelites. And nobody did anything. Saul was king, and he was a big guy, but he didn't do anything. Not one man wanted to go up against Goliath. He's a pretty scary creature, Goliath. That's a big fella. Pretty scary sight. But there's nothing you can't do with God. So David, he gets there. He listens. He sees all that's going on. And he's trying to get a report of what's going on here. And down in verse 26, David asked the men standing near him, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should go to find the armies of the living God?" And they repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, this is what will be done for the man who kills him. His oldest brother gets mad at him, and says, you're just here, you're just trying to, you're conceited. He goes on to talk about that. You're basically trying to do for yourself and make yourself look good. So David says, what have I done? I hadn't done anything. I'm just asking, I'm just talking. He turns around and he's talking to people about what's going on. So finally, he then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter. And the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. Now this is a young boy, David. He's come up there. He's a man, but he's a young man. He's come up there and he sees what's going on, and that this guy's out taunting Israel, the Lord's people, and he says, we can't keep this up. And they take him to Saul before the king. And David says, I'll take care of it. Saul replied, you are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You're only a boy, and he's been a fighting man from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or bear came and carried off sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. Do you see the confidence that David has? Do you think David would have that kind of confidence if he didn't know who God was? Who in their right mind is going to go up against a man like Goliath without knowing the Lord is with him? But David knew the Lord was with him. The Lord was with him. And Saul tried to dress him up in all the armor and give him the big sword and all that stuff that he had, and it didn't fit him. It was too weight. He wasn't used to it. I mean, it was too much for him. He just took it all off. He said, no. He said, I can't handle this. He said, I can't use this. He said to Saul, because I'm not used to them, so he took them off. He took his staff in his hand. He chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. Here comes this boy with his pouch and his sling and some stones. Meanwhile, the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was only a boy, ruddy and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. I don't know about you. That would make you quake if you didn't know who was with you. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me. I'll strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and He will give all of you into our hands. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it. He struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell down, face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with sling and a stone, without a sword in his hand. He struck down the Philistine and he killed him. David ran and stood over him. He took hold of the Philistine's sword and drew it from the scabbard. After he killed him, he cut off his head with a sword. And when the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. And Israel went after him. Folks, David said it right. For the battle is the Lord's. When I read this, from the time I was a young kid, and I could read, or I could be read to, this story, as well as many others, have been read to me. The battle belongs to the Lord. And when I read this to this day, I get cold chills. Do you? The battle belongs to the Lord. I want to be a warrior for God. Do you? Does this church stand for that? Do we want to be workers for God? You see, that's the point. Our battle is a little bit different, but it's the very same outcome. These were physical battles that they were fighting in God's name. Today, we're fighting spiritual warfare. It's around us. If you were here for the meeting when Brother Sandusky was here, he gave you a glimpse in discussion about opening the veil of the things that are around us. There are angels around us right now, brethren. There are enemies around us right now, brethren. Christ is with us here today, brethren. They are fighting a war, a spiritual warfare to which we are part. We live in a carnal world. We will die and go to a spiritual one. Do you want to be a part of that spiritual world? Fighting that warfare for God. If so, you need to be standing up for Christ every single day of your life. You need to be talking to people about the Lord. You need to be introducing Christ to those who don't have any understanding. And you should not leave it to someone else to fight the battle. God will fight it. You have to introduce it. We've been talking about sowing the seed, and there's some seed being sown. But there's a whole lot more seed that can be sown. There's a whole lot more battle that can be given to the Lord. But you have to give it to Him. We have to give Him the opportunity to fight. We have to be willing to fight for the Lord. And every day, in conclusion, in Ephesians chapter 6, Paul tells us how to deal with this warfare every day. In verse 10 of chapter 6, he says, "Finally be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, stand firm. Then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions, with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the saints." Brethren, this morning, be a warrior for the Lord. If you have not been fighting the fight the way the Lord wants you to fight it, I beg of you to take up your armor today. Today. Not tomorrow. Today. And start fighting it. If you need help with that, we'll pray for you. We want you to come up here. We'll pray for you. If you are not a Christian, if you're not faithful, if you're not a Christian, you've never even become, if you've never dedicated your life to Christ, never been baptized for the remission of your sins, you're not even in the fight. You need to get in the fight before it's too late.